Do you see how toxic that actually is? Do you see that mindset shift that like makes it seem justified in my mind, but at the end of the day is still destructive? Of going to like, well, I'm still paying your bills, so then therefore you should love me. When I wasn't showing any love at all. When I wasn't showing any care at all. When I wasn't demonstrating anything at all that showed that I actually cared, loved, or respected my wife. When a man assumes that just paying the bills and coming home at the end of the day is enough for a relationship to work, run. It's one of the quotes that I actually posted on Instagram a little while ago and on some other platforms, and I got a lot of feedback from it. It was interesting because there's a couple people in different camps whenever I posted that. Some people were like very much like, yes, 100%, like that totally matches up to my relationship. Like that's all they did. They just made a paycheck and came home and disconnected and didn't really care. And then there's a couple people that were like, that's so mean. Like, how could you say that? Like, I'm doing more than doing a paycheck. Like, all these people kind of justifying, like, what they're actually doing and saying, like, I'm just so tired when I come home, I can't connect. And then, like, different people trying to justify different pieces of it. And ultimately, I'm not here to be able to be everybody's friend. Like, you're not going to like everything that I put on social media. But at the end of the day, I think the statement's still true. And the reason why I think the statement's so true is because that's been me. I was that person. I was that person that expected it to be a certain way because I did the very, very minimum basic requirements of a relationship, and that's actually to show up. But the problem is I wasn't actually showing up completely. I was just paying the bills and then thinking that a relationship should work. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness, growth, healing, change, and development. I work with people every single day to try to help break them free of a trauma bond. The bond that keeps pulling them back to the toxic person over and over and over again. And I sit down with people and help give them the tools and the resources to be able to break completely free so that they're no longer thinking about or going back to that toxic person. I'm the founder of Raw Motivations, the creator of the NARC app, and your guide in the 45-day Clarity Challenge that you can find at claritychallenge.net. People normally think that just when someone shows up that it's enough. A lot of men out there think that just because they go to work and they provide a house over people's heads means that it's enough. A lot of this has been perpetuated over the years and over through culture of this is just how it's been. Here in the United States, a lot of times it's been that way for a period of time that the man was just supposed to show up and just provide, and that was it. They could come home, prop up his feet, and just watch TV, read the newspaper, and that was it. Didn't have anything else to do. Kids didn't really matter. Everything else didn't really matter. Just show up to make it look a certain way, and that was it. I think that's wrong, and I think that's a bunch of BS. I think that's a man shirking his duties to actually learn how to live and learn how to lead other people, especially the kids in his life. When it comes down to it, I viewed what I was doing as being good enough. I was going to work. I was providing an income. And I was coming home at the end of the day. The three things that I thought was justified of that being good enough to be in the relationship. But then we add in the other stuff that was actually happening. I was being mentally and emotionally abusive to my wife and gaslighting her, making her think that she was crazy when I was doing things that was detrimental to the relationship. Oftentimes this would be in the form of cheating, of going out and being with other people, saying I was at work late or saying I was doing whatever, but ultimately having an excuse of not coming home when I should have come home and being with another woman. This is something that a lot of people are pissed off about when I communicate, but it's true. This is what was going on. And a lot of men think that just because they provide that it's actually good enough. I would say that's the very, very basic minimum requirements to actually step up, to actually be a man. But you're going to see people that'll even comment on this video, they're going to be like, I don't like that. I don't really care. I think you're not showing up as a real person in the relationship when all you do is provide money. You see, I would do that, and then I would tell myself that I'm a good person. And that was one of my biggest lies. I'm a good person. I'm a good guy. Because I'm still showing up. Like, yeah, I just cheated before I walked in. I'm still showing up. Do you see how toxic that actually is? Do you see that mindset shift that like makes it seem justified in my mind, but at the end of the day is still destructive? Of going to like, well, I'm still paying your bills, so then therefore you should love me. When I wasn't showing any love at all. when I wasn't showing any care at all, when I wasn't demonstrating anything at all that showed that I actually cared, loved, or respected my wife. But instead, I was wasting that and squandering that on someone else, saying how much I love that person, how much I was invested in that person, how much I cared about that person. And then ultimately losing that person, like pushing that person away, and it goes back to the same cycle over and over and over and over again. At the end of the day, if you're with someone that all they think is they just need to show up, just walk in the door and say, I provided for you today, not really in much of a relationship. If anything, they're just paying to have the convenience of having a nice housemaid or having kids. But it's not really this family, and it's not really a connection. Ultimately, you're searching for a connection. The problem is when you're with a toxic person, you start to view that connection only being able to be satisfied with that toxic person. Oftentimes, this connection looks more like a trauma bond. Like you're stuck with this person. You're like, this is the only person I can ever love. This is the only person that will love me. This is the only person that I'm good enough for. And all those things are manipulation and lies that keep you trapped, keep you stuck in a toxic relationship thinking that it won't get better, that this is as good as it's going to get, that this is as far ahead of life that I'm going to get. Or even if I left this person and I went to someone else, I would still not be loved more than this. You see a lot of men, they want to be able to provide and then they want to be able to come home and just chill. At the end of the day, that's not your job. It's not your responsibility just to come home and check out. You've got other people that are relying on you more than your coworkers. Because your coworkers or the people underneath you are there to be able to produce and do a job. The family that you have at home is to be able to produce and have a connection. There's a big difference. There's a big difference in a dynamic with the person that you are supposed to be at home versus the person you're supposed to be at work. I loved my job. I thought it was amazing because I thought I was amazing, not the job. But the people there thought I was amazing because I looked amazing, because I knew the answers to all the questions. And then I'd come home and I'd be like, why am I not amazing at home? Because I wasn't doing anything at home. I wasn't showing up at home. I was coming in and discounting my wife's feelings and emotions. I was ignoring the kids. I was making life seem like, hey, this doesn't matter to me. And I was showing that every single day by not making anything a priority. Everything was an inconvenience, unless it had to do with work, unless it had to do with making money, unless it had to do with me showing up a certain way to look good in a work environment. It had to do with everybody else. And how it had to do is it had to go back to me. Of how I looked, of how I felt, instead of actually saying, how can I show up today intentionally to have a connection with my wife? How can I show up today intentionally to actually work on things together? How can I show up intentionally to be vulnerable with her of what's actually going on, of how I'm actually feeling? How can I show up intentional to be able to work with my daughter? Of like, how can I work on our relationship? How can I build a connection? How can I build depth to that relationship? How can I help lead her? How can I help guide her? Instead, everything was an inconvenience. Walk in the door, it was about me. Walk out the door, it was about me. And you see, you have to remember that when we talk about narcissism, it is all about that image. It's all about the mask. And the mask typically looks amazing out in public. It looks amazing in the work environment. It looks amazing in different circles. Until they come home. And then when I came home, that's when the mask would come off. Not completely, because I would still hide stuff, or there'd be a different layer, a different mask. But at that point, I didn't have to be this amazing person. I didn't think I was at home because no one respected me because of the person that I was showing up as. Not a man, not honest, not vulnerable, not respectful, not loyal, not loving, not kind. And so many people get this skewed. And get this whole like idea and dynamic of like, well, like this person should love me. This person should respect me. Well, there's an aspect of that that's true. You can't respect someone that's not showing up as a real person. And you can't respect someone who's showing up consistently as an asshole. Or only concerned about one aspect of the relationship, what they get out of it versus what they're actually putting in. How they're actually creating space for the other person's emotions. You want to know one of the hardest things for a narcissist in a relationship is to create space for you to express who you actually are. This is why narcissists oftentimes will not handle your emotions, will not handle your tears, your frustration, your anger, your getting upset about different things that they've hurt you or whatever it might be. They won't handle that because it's hard for them to create space for another person. This is hard for me to do. So I'm sharing it very vulnerably of it is hard for me to create space for my wife's feeling. Even after months, years of therapy, even after all of that, it is still hard. It is still a challenge. Now, there's certain areas that I can create space for are a lot easier than others. There's certain areas that she comes with different emotions and feelings about a certain topic, and it's very triggering. And so I just want to be get over it, do this. So there is aspects that it's gotten easier, and there is aspects that it's still very hard. But that concept of being able to hold space for another person's emotions and feelings and caring for that without taking it on, without saying oh, that's my fault, or without saying oh, I have to do something different, or I have to fix it, and just saying, hey, I'm here for you to create space, to be able to interact, to be able to hear, to be able to see who you actually are. Majority of the time, that's almost impossible for narcissists to be able to see who you are and to be able to experience and hold your emotions and feelings without fixing it, without running away, and without getting upset that it's an inconvenience. So if you're in a relationship with someone who is just providing, paying the bills, and then walking in the door and then disconnecting, you're not really in much of a relationship. Before I forget, as we finish up here, if you haven't had a chance, go to escapetoxicity.com, sign up for the 7-day challenge. It's $7 to have you get a grounding and an understanding of what we actually do and how we partner with you every single day to help you break the trauma bond and to be able to get free. Escapetoxicity.com. Thank you all so much. Have a great day.